Welcome to another Food Plotters Journal podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping landowners grow better food plots with less equipment, less work, and more success. My name is VanderVeen of Strategic Habitat, and my co-host is John Komp of Northwoods Whitetails Food Plot Seed. In this episode, John and I talk about how long seeds can lay on the ground without any rain before they dry up and spoil. And in case you need to replant due to lack of rain, or maybe deer have already eaten your food plot down to dirt, how late into the fall can you reseed and what are your best choices? And we talk about how 20-foot tall food plot screens are impressive, but what really makes for a high quality visual screen. So with that said, let's go right into the call with John. Hey John, how you doing?
Good, Randy. How you doing?
Really good. So are you still shipping seed down south? Are those guys still planting down there?
A lot of it's going down south, but we just got a pallet of switchgrass in. We've been waiting on for 3 months, and that's going anywhere from 45 miles from here all the way down to Kentucky. So yeah, we're shipping that everywhere too. So been pretty busy.
Yeah, I see that. I saw your post about your switchgrass, and looks like it's got, I mean, it's pretty clean with a high germ rate, huh?
Yeah, I was shocked to see that when one of our seed locators asked me if I was interested. I said, heck yeah, I'll take the whole pallet, because we've been waiting on it for 3 months. You know, we've been turning down a lot of dirty stuff, you know, weed percentages and foxtail and ragweed in it, and I'm not interested in selling that. So we've had multiple customers waiting quite a few months to get their hands on it. So we finally got I think Saturday we picked the pallet up, and we've been shipping it just about every day now.
Okay. So can guys get it in 5-pound bags yet, or 10-pound bags?
Yeah, I think we've got about 35 to 50 5-pound bags yet. And then I think we got probably a dozen 50-pound bags yet.
Okay, great. So what about like rye? Are you getting lots of calls from guys who, you know, had food plot failure and they're wanting to plant rye just as a last minute ditch effort here in the northern tier states?
Yes, we're shipping out probably 20 to 30 bags of rye a day.
Wow.
Everywhere. Well, this drought is, you know, it's not just affecting us. This is as bad as I can remember here living in the UP. Gosh, for 20 years, I think this is the driest fall I've ever seen. We've had 2 food plot failures, our personal food plots. But yeah, we're sending it out every day. Just no rain. And then the problem is we did get some rain last night. You couldn't tell though. I walked out this morning, and it was a pretty good thunderstorm. I walked out this morning and everything was dry already. And I think the dry ground soaked it up so fast that even if we would have, I didn't even bother putting rye out, because the next 10 days is going to be, you know, just a scorcher. You know, mid 70s, which isn't really hot, but for September it is. And the next 10 days didn't have any chance of rain. So if we had multiple rain events coming, I would have gone and seeded. But with just one rain event coming, I didn't even bother, because what happens is, what I've seen in the past is that rye will start to throw it when it's this dry. Typically it's, you know, this is not really your average year.
No.
But typically what I've been seeing with this drought, we've gotten a rain event like once a month now for the last couple of months. It'll throw a root and then it dies 2 weeks later. You know, you can kind of, you know, we did a lot of the spray and crush and you know, that kind of planting method, but that works great as long as you have the adequate rainfall. And I've seen a couple times now where the rye or the wheat, or, you know, one of our fall forage plots, it'll start to germinate, and that top layer just isn't dry. Or I'm sorry, it's too dry, and it just doesn't, you know, sustain the plant. You know, and this actually goes back all the way to, if you think about here in Upper Michigan anyway, we had maybe 1.5 feet of snow here, and that's unheard of, you know. So the ground moisture just wasn't there. You know, I remember fishing this spring during the walleye run, and the water was really, really low, and I thought, man, you know, the planting season, if we don't get a wet summer, the planting season is going to be pretty tough. And it's been. We've had some successful plots. Our 3-strip plot where we tilled in the red clover, and in Nebraska, that's doing quite well because we caught some timely rains, and the thatch that we've created held moisture. But anything we're trying to do now, just isn't working up here anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the guys that planted, I think like late July, especially, like down here in the lower peninsula, they planted late July. We had some pretty good timely rains, but boy, then you hit, say middle of August and it was just a dry spell. And that's when a lot of guys planted and it just sat out there and baked. So,
the water up here was shut off, I believe the last weekend in July. That's when they pretty much shut the rain off up here.
Yeah. So when are you telling guys, say in Michigan, Wisconsin, where you're at and stuff? I mean, what's the latest that you're telling guys they can plant rye with a certain level of success?
Up here, I would still plant well into, the teens of October. Obviously, you're going to have to bump your seeding rate up. But the thing is, what I'm telling people now, a customer stopped by the other day looking for some rye. And it goes back to that. How are you planting it? If you're drilling it, that's one thing, or, you're going to get the seed in the ground.
Yep.
But these, and again, I love no-till as much as anybody. But one of the things, Randy, that I don't have right now versus like a Gabe Brown or a David Brandt is I don't have a no-till drill. I don't physically have a way. I've got a grain drill, but there's not enough down pressure on the grain drill to cut into the surface of the soil to deposit that seed a half-inch deep. If I did, I'd be doing all my plots right now, everything to be done, other than that one real rocky one right across the street from us. But that would make a huge difference because I think your germination and we had, we've got that building going up next door here, and we had to reroute some drain for our roof, our rain gutters, and I scratched in a bunch of seed. And then another part of that project, we just dropped the seed on top of the ground. Well, the stuff that I scratched in was up in 2 days after a light sprinkle. And the stuff that's on top of the ground still sitting there 3-4 weeks later. So I think, when it's this dry out, I don't think one rain event is going to get the seed going just from what I'm seeing. I think you need multiple. So that being said, that's why I didn't throw any more rye out last night, because there was only one rain event scheduled for the next 10 days, and I didn't want to get my hopes up. I knew it wasn't going to work. I take that back. I was fairly confident it wasn't going to work. So it's just, it's just the hand we're being dealt with this year, and it's everybody's in that ball, is in that ball game right now of dry conditions. But we're talking to some people way out east, and they're getting rain every other day. So, but here in Michigan, it's been pretty dry.
Yeah. Well, just north of Grand Rapids here in Cedar Springs, I got a client where he put in irrigation, kind of a homemade thing, pulling water out of a pond. Pretty ingenious, man. He's able to irrigate like crazy. But ever since he got that thing in, like this year, he's had rain. I think every single rain cloud that's come across the lake has hit his property, Unbelievable. I mean, he gets rain every doggone time. So, John, is there anything else that you're recommending to guys that still want to plant? Are you recommending anything besides rye? Like, are you figuring like oats or wheat or anything like that?
Well, that's going to be conducive to where they're located in the country. I mean, obviously right now, up here and north of here, we could be looking, I think the other morning it was 42 degrees. So I'm wow. It's going to be depending. If someone's going to drill right now, absolutely you could get oats, because I think oats grows faster even than rye does.
I do too.
I mean, oats, 48 hours and you'll have green. You'll have green. How is it being planted? Is it just being broadcast? Is it being broadcast in a thatch? Or are you actually drilling it? Are you working the soil a little bit, getting it covered? Do you have a rain event coming in the next? It's going to hinge on where they're located, how they're planting. Usually we don't ask too many questions like that this late in the year. How are you planting? But we're asking everybody, how are you going to plant this? And if they're just going to do the throw and grow method, I kind of give them okay, now just so you understand, being this dry, you might need more than one rain event. So but that we're mostly doing cereal grains. Further south, I mean, we got a lot of brassica going down to South Carolina, Georgia. I think we had sent one to Panama City, Florida this morning. So,
wow.
The further south, those guys are just starting to get the brassicas in now.
Yeah. Well, like you say, with going no-till, man, you really got to get that good seed to soil contact. And, if you're not tilling and you're just throwing seed on the ground, let's say maybe you even have a little bit of thatch that you can roll over the seed afterwards. I really think it's very important that you got to have a heavy roller, like a smooth roller that's going to have, contact all the way across that roller versus, like with a cultipacker, that's for guys that are tilling and got a lot of loose dirt, right? But if you're not tilling and you got basically hard ground with vegetation you're rolling over, man, that smooth roller works much better.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I've never thought about that.
Do you have any Wisconsin customers with any nice bucks down yet?
I haven't heard yet. I thought it was way too warm. My son his football team played in Wisconsin on Saturday, which would have been opening day, and it was awfully warm. So, but we had that cold front come through last night, would have been Monday night. So I would assume we're going to start to see some success pictures roll in pretty quick here.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've got a landowner I'm working with that he's really been bummed out. He's not had one mature buck picture on any of his cameras, and he's got a new cutting link system. So he's got about 9-10 cameras out there. But finally last night at 2:30 in the morning, he had a couple pretty heavy bucks walking through his food plot. Pictures are kind of grainy. It's at night. And, but you could tell they were big bodies. They had some girth to them. And,
Sure.
it's like, boy, you get some of this cooler weather and we got this cold front moving through, and, it's like a switch all of a sudden. Yep. Very first time there they are,
Well, I'm anxious to see tonight. We had this about a 30-degree drop in temperature. It seems like from yesterday till today, after the rains blew through last night. I'm anxious to see what steps out behind our house here tonight. That food plot, the bean field south of us is all dried down, so they're not there anymore. And there was some really nice bucks out in that field. So our half-acre food plot's nice and green right now, and I'm kind of anxious to. Construction guys actually called it quits for the day. So I'm kind of anxious to see now if things are going to quiet down this afternoon, what steps out there tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few bucks out in that field tonight.
Right. So what stage are you at, John, on your barn?
They've got I guess I'd call it the skeletons done, the 4 walls, the roof, trusses, or everything's done. They're going to start putting the steel on pretty quick. So
nice.
I'm hoping to move in. I was joking on Facebook. The other day we had a post. It sounds like we're going to get to move in about November 15th. So
yeah, well, I think you said before that this is probably going to be one year that your hunting is going to be pretty limited anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Yeah, we've got a lot to do yet. We're shipping more now than we ever have in the fall, and we're dealing with the contractors every day, and we're going to start all the interior work pretty quick. So, plus kids football and traveling here and there. So yeah, this won't be a year we're going to be in a tree a lot, but hopefully when we are in the tree, we'll get to take advantage of it.
Yeah. So do you have any new blends, any new seed that you're going to be trying out next year?
We've got some things we're looking at, now that we've got a lot more space, Randy. There's a lot of things we want to look at, a lot of things we want to try. We're looking at, we've got that fall forage mix, and then we've got the soil builder for building soil in sandy food plots. We're looking at a blend for those folks that have sandy soil. We're looking at doing a blend for them for fall, because I think the fall forage is a great blend, but I think we want to do something that's more conducive for the folks that have, I don't want to say crappy soil, but less than adequate soil, less than optimal soil.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at doing something like that. I mean, I can walk out a half mile anywhere from my house here in gosh darn near farm every condition imaginable, from impossible to till to some really beautiful black topsoil to sand, you name it, we can do it. So we've got great opportunities to help these folks that have sandy soil. Central Wisconsin is notorious for that. Central lower Michigan's really bad. And sometimes I think that fall forage is a really good workhorse in the fall for those people that can't, they don't have brassica conditions yet, or they've got way too many deer to where we just keep fall forage in their food plots. But I think we can come up with something. We've got something we're working on for just, more of a sandy soil condition. So that's probably going to be the biggest thing for us.
Okay.
I checked on the gentleman that does our sorghum for our food plot screen. He said the harvest is going to be excellent. So I don't see any kind of a shortage for that next year. Hopefully our farms that we're working with are doing really good with their switchgrass harvest. So yeah, just the biggest thing's going to be getting moved in the new shop. And then I think next year we're really going to take off with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Great. Yeah. Speaking of your food plot screen, wow, there's been, I've seen several pictures across, several states where guys are standing in front of their HD screen, John, and oh my word, we're talking all of, 14, 15 feet.
Yeah. We've got some 20 footers. We've got some guys with 20 feet tall, which, and it looks cool. Yeah, don't get me wrong. That looks neat. That looks really cool. That's a great picture. I mean, it's impressive. But, the thing I tell those guys is I said, I want to see the pictures November 15th. I want to see the pictures December 15th, because that's when it really matters. I mean, there's probably 25, 30 different companies putting a food plot screen out now, and they all, everybody's got their, 12, 14, 15, 16 foot tall food plot screen. That looks great. It really does. But, I want to see what it looks like November 15th. That's, if it's still standing at 10 feet, you've got my attention. If it's flat on the ground, go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we've worked on for so long. If it's planted right, I can't control Mother Nature dropping 50-mile-an-hour winds and freezing rain. We can't control that.
No.
But for the most part, I think we've run this screen now 6 years in a row, this particular strain. And I think only 1 year we had a problem with it. And that was right in our front yard here. And we planted that, that was planted with a screen 10 years in a row. So we pretty much depleted that soil, but we did that test on purpose. But, we've got some pretty impressive stuff. And yeah, that is a neat looking picture. But, yeah, I like I told the gentleman, I said, let's see what it looks like November 15th. Hopefully it's still 10 feet tall.
Well, I think maybe next year, if guys know that, hey, I can get, on optimal conditions, I can get 15 feet if I can plant it on time, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have a cold spring, really, there's no reason for guys to panic, I mean, and try to get it in right away. I mean, if you can't plant until mid-June, it's really not a big deal, because really, for a screen, that's really all you need is, 7, 8 feet to be able to walk on the other side.
Yeah.
So if you only get half the height, you're still good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is, but we still like to have some time for the girth, the thickness to develop.
Yep.
We're still working with Brad Harper on some of his liquid fertilizers. We're trying it on our screen here, right at the house. Some of his liquid fertilizer to help that strengthening process. We backed off on some of the fertilizer rates, and we're trying some other stuff. The screen I'm looking at it right now is probably 13 feet tall at the tallest point, but the average is 11. But what I'm hoping for is November 15th. It's still, 9 feet tall.
Right.
So we're still working on that. But yeah, that this year in general for gosh darn near anything was miserable for planting. Switchgrass. It was just so cold, and then we went right into a drought. And it almost seemed like for Michigan there was like a 2-week window that was optimal for planting the screen before it went drought. The drought conditions showed up, and then it just kind of sat there, and then we got a bunch of rain in July, and then it started growing, and then it got dry again. But what we're seeing here is that once that screen gets rolling, it's pretty drought resilient. So, and then we take a lot of Brad's liquid fertilizer, kind of saves the day, because if you're using granular fertilizer, well, it doesn't do any good if we're not getting any rain.
Right.
And we ran into that problem last year. We did a side-by-side test with granular on one of our brassica plots versus Brad's liquid, and it was a 9-day difference. And I think Brad's got some really good products, but the other thing is that granular fertilizer just sat there because it wasn't raining.
Right.
So, so that's one of the things that we're pretty impressed with the products Brad has, is that you don't need the rain to incorporate it into your food plots.
Right. Yep. And he did that screen that we filmed on his property too. He did the 3-way side by side, and clearly the granular really didn't do anything at all. And man, apples to apples, it was quite eye opening. But Okay, well, hey, John, I don't think we can. The odds of having 2 years back to back with horrible rain conditions, the lack of rain, those odds are pretty low, I would think. I mean, I don't remember 2 years in a row like that. So hopefully next year, we'll not be having these same conversations.
Yeah, that we had a dry August last year, but I think you're right. Back to back, next year we could be talking about it's rained a foot in the first 3 weeks of July. So, but the funny thing is that you were talking about your client that got an irrigation system going. I finally had enough, and I said we are going to have some green food here. So I went and bought it. We're done swimming in our pond, so I went and bought a jet pump, and I think we had a couple 100 feet of garden hose here, and I grabbed another 100 feet, and we got one section of a food plot we're watering, and actually our garden too. We're trying to get our cover crop in for, our rye crop in for next year's crimping for planting the garden, and it wasn't growing, and I'm like, oh, good grief. So I'd overseeded it twice and nothing took. Well, I ran a sprinkler on it for 12 hours out of the pond, and the whole thing's green now.
Oh, wow.
And I think a lot of guys, or how long can my seed sit? It can probably rise as long as it's not, on top of the ground on dark soil, being baked. If you've got a little bit of thatch on top of it, I think it could sit for a month or two. And I think you'd be surprised if we got 2 or 3 rains within 1 week and a little bit of cooler weather, that sun's getting a little bit lower in the sky. You'd be surprised because from the time I turned that sprinkler on to 48 hours later, everything was green, and it was bare, when I set that sprinkler up. So it's just a matter of getting some rain is all it is. I mean, and we might not have that green food plot we're hoping for opening week in the bow season in Michigan's October 1st, but I'm hoping that, mid to end of October, the food plots are greening up when it really matters, so, all is not lost yet, but it kind of looks pretty gloomy right now, but like I said, 2 or 3 good rains, and you'd be surprised at how fast that greens up, especially rye.
And John, how long was your seed sitting on your plot before you started watering?
I think it's it's our garden, Randy. We did the rye crush down in June, so there was maybe a half-inch layer of rye thatch, but it sat there. I think some of it sat there for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
We started overseeding for the rye for the garden probably like the 10th of August, and nothing was growing. There was no rye growing, and I think Saturday or Friday I put the sprinkler on it, sucked it out of the pond, ran a hose about 250 feet, watered it in for 12 hours, and it was green within 2 days. So that seed can sit there. The other problem I'm running with this no-till is pigeons and turkeys and sandhill cranes. Good grief.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the other problem. I think some of these guys are gonna have to put scarecrows in their food plots, because I got one food plot that I'm pulling the thatch apart and I can't find any seed, but you find all these little holes in there. And one day I went back there and there was sandhill cranes everywhere, and I'm like, okay, I know what's going on now. So yeah, that's I'd hate to be a farmer. I really would. I feel sorry for those guys.
Oh man, they got so many things going against them. Down here south of Grand Rapids, man, I was driving by this field, and I think I lost track after counting around 25 sandhill cranes in one field. Had never seen one field have that many cranes in it. And it's like, it's getting to be more popular. And what is going on? We need to open up a sandhill crane season or something,
Yeah. So that's the two things. If guys aren't getting any kind of growth right now, one, pray for rain, multiple rains, and two, you might have to get some sort of a scarecrow system, because you drop that first round of rye down and it doesn't take off. Well, all of a sudden every bird and critter in the woods finds it. That's you laugh, and I didn't think it was a big problem until I saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
So, yep. But a lot of cereal grains, guys further south from us, we're having them put some buckwheat in their fall plantings for instant green. That seems to be the greenest. That grows the fastest, I think. So a lot of stuff like that, pretty much done with the brassicas and the clovers and that kind of stuff, unless it's really far south. But for the guys up here, a lot of rye.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned buckwheat, and I've been posting those pictures about the battle of the blends, between the 5-way blend and that brand name 12-way blend. And I'll have to say the the side with the 12-way blend, it kind of came up a little bit slower. It was planted one day later, right? But everything else was the same. And it just struggled coming out of the ground. I mean, it's a lot more brassicas than there was grains, right? So, man, those oats and that rye on the 5-way blend, that just jumped right out of the ground. I think what happened was it did not allow a lot of the weed competition or the buckwheat, the volunteer buckwheat that was the crop in there, the previous cycle. It didn't allow that stuff to really thrive. Where on the other side, it took longer. And boy, the horse nettle and the buckwheat really took off. But now they pretty much side by side almost look the same. But on the 12-way blend, because there is a lot more brassicas in there, you have less plants, but it looks good because the leaves are so big, right? But all in all,
yeah, I was looking at that before we started. And what's in that 5-way? Is that?
Yep, that's
rye,
oats, peas, rice, radish, and crimson clover.
Oh, it's crimson clover. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, and the other one's got I think 7 brassicas in it, and some rye, oats, and peas, and sugar beets, and
winter wheat. Yeah. But very.
That's what I'd like to see. Actually, that's going to go find a sugar beet in that 12-way blend.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, find a sugar beet. I'd like to see how big that sugar beet got.
If I can find one, John.
Right. Yeah, that's always been a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah,
those
exactly.
Sugar beets in those brassica blends. I'd like to see a sugar beet and compare it to. I think, do they grow sugar beets over by you in Grand Rapids? There's a lot growing in Michigan, but they get as big as a football or a volleyball.
That'd be on the east side of the state,
Oh, okay, yeah. But I'm curious. I'd like to see how big or little that fall planted sugar beet got.
Yeah. No, I hear you there, and no, we'll see. It's going to be really interesting to watch the progression of this comparison now going into the later season. What side is going to resist the browsing the best, because this landowner's got a lot of deer on his property, and they might be able to wipe them brassicas right out. And if he doesn't have a lot of grains to resist that browsing, it's going to be down real quick, right? So,
is it fenced in? Do you guys have a fence around it?
No fences, no, no. So, it's he counted 26 deer in the field last year on one set, so we're gonna see which side is gonna hold up to all that browse pressure later into the season. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I would think the side with the more cereal grains is going to obviously do a lot better. Does he have some rye for backup on that brassica side? I would think you're going to need it.
Matter of fact, John, yesterday I just put down about 200 pounds of about 150 pounds per acre of a rootstock rye on the 12-way blend that's heavy brassica, because we'd like to do a test, right, and have apples to apples, but I don't want the landowner to run out of food. So there was a section that I did not put any rootstock rye on, probably like a 15-foot wide or I'm sorry, a 15-yard wide section. So, but everything else got a heavy dose of rye on it, just because I can see it coming. I can see him, nibbling that stuff down to the dirt, and he's not going to have any rye as a backup. So it was 4 weeks after we drilled those fields, and now 4 weeks later, he ought to have a nice new fresh crop of rye coming up here soon. We just had rain last night. We had rain again today, so I think everything's good there. So,
yeah. Now, you guys drilled into what, buckwheat, or was it rye that you guys drilled into?
It was buckwheat that we drilled into. Yeah.
What did he use? Genesis, or what does he have? A lamb?
It was the Genesis 5. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this field in particular is really poor soil. I mean, very, very sandy. Yep. So we're not going to grow anything. We're not going to break any records or anything like that. But, just another example why, in a situation like that, when you have poor soil, kind of sandy, you want to err on the side of having more grains than you do brassicas,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, but it looks like, for poor soil, the pictures I've seen, you guys did a really nice job with that. I mean, your fertilizer's right. Your, timing looks really, really good.
Yeah.
So, seed depth looks pretty good. So, yeah, I'm interested to see the results of that. But, that no-till, especially in that sandy soil, absolutely, I think it's the way to go. But it's just when you get in a situation like we're in right now, I know there's a lot of guys, you can see it on social media, on some of the hunting forums. There's just a level of frustration that, we can't make it rain. If I could sell a bottle of rain, I'd love to, but we can't make it rain. And I know up here, I don't see any end in sight, the next 10 to 15 days. Thankfully, we're getting cooler temperatures and we're starting to get a lot of dew in the morning. So, if anything that thought about germinating and gets that little leaf out of the ground, that hopefully that dew can sustain it. But
Yep.
I'm hoping the days of, the 80 and 90 degree where it's just baking, I might actually go up across the street and grab a bunch of seed, bring it home and do a germ test. Cause I know some of that's been sitting out there since the last weekend in July.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's been out there for a long time. So I'm half tempted to go grab some, just throw it in a germ test just to see, if it did in fact try to throw a root and die, or if actually it's still viable.
That's a great idea, John. I never thought about going out there to a field where, it hasn't grown yet. Just grab some of that seed off the ground and do a germ test.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I'm just curious because, like I said, I've seen, we're looking at 3 or 4 plots right now, and I can see where the little root leader started. And, 2 weeks later, you're expecting to go in there and see a green field, and it's nothing. The root leader maybe grew a half an inch and it's still sitting there. So I don't really know what's going on. If it, can't make up its mind, or if it's just calling it a day and throwing the towel in. So it's just, like I said, Randy, I can't remember a fall this dry. I mean, I don't know if we've got fire warnings up here, but if we don't, I would assume they're coming pretty quick.
I know you don't want to get moisture this way, but boy, you guys could use a lot of snow this winter, huh? Much rather get the rain this fall and next spring, and rains, we'll pass on the snow.
Yeah, no, like I said, I kind of figured we were in trouble this year with as low as the water was this spring, the rivers and stuff. So, it's just part of nature. We got to deal with it, and if you can get, I know a lot of guys with brassica failures and clover failures, and I had a gentleman stop today and asking about rye, and I told him, he says, I don't know if I want to do rye. I said, I'll tell you what, you've got the only green food source right now, on 40, 60, 80 to 200 acres. I said, you're going to have just about every deer in there, because you think about how dry it is and how dry the woods is right now. And I know, like our little half-acre green food plot, I think last night there was 15, 18 of them in there.
Whoa.
And we're not even to October yet.
Yeah.
So,
Ouch.
So that's the thing, a month from now, if this continues, the guys with the green food plots are going to be sitting pretty good. So, and it could flip on like I said, if you've got rye down, it could flip tomorrow. You could have 1 or 2 good rains, and the next thing you know, that bare field you've been looking at for 2 months could be, green within 3 to 5 days. So, just kind of keep doing the rain dance, or say your prayers, or whatever you got to do. We just need some rain. I know that's our problem up here.
Yeah, you bet. All right, John. Well, hey, we got 10 more days until the broadheads fly. So,
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably not going to be out with your barn going. You're probably not going to be out there opening day, but, when you do get out there, hopefully with, Nate and stuff, good luck to you guys out there.
Yeah, that's probably going to be a kid season this year. I might get up in a tree once or twice, but, we'll wait for some cooler weather and let the cameras tell us what we got to do. And hopefully we'll have something on the ground soon. Yeah.
All right, John. Well, hey, we'll check in with you again, down the road, but we'll have to continue these probably starting up, after the first of the year. Guys are going to start thinking about doing frost seeding, right?
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of guys are doing the October, November seeding with switchgrass. So we're prepping on that. But before you know it, it'll be January, and be time to start thinking about planting again.
Yep, you bet. All right, John. Well, hey, have a good week, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, Randy. Thanks.
You bet. We'll see you.